Hi folks, I have had a few requests to have a little bit of an update and a tour of what we've been up to around here while I've been AWOL from YouTube. We have actually been progressing along fairly steadily with our projects. If you can remember, this property was originally, we bought it pretty much exactly 3 years ago, and it was recently cleared pine forestry. So there were logs everywhere, lots of dead soil, lots of piles of sticks and piles of clay, very little fertile soil. We got some soil tests done, and basically it showed that the soil was deplete of absolutely everything. It was highly acidic. I think it was about 4.3 pH, and it was deplete of everything except for iron, aluminium and salt, none of which are very helpful. So it has been a really long, slow process trying to get things to grow. Of course, one of the pioneering species here, unfortunately, is gorse. And given we have 40 acres of that, or 43 acres of that, our main solution, other than the areas that we're growing food in, we got the helicopter over to spray it, which is, it's kind of an ethical dilemma for us, because we don't want 40 acres covered in gorse because that's useless and not productive. But also I don't like the idea of spraying things. So we used a spray that doesn't last too long in the soil. We made sure we timed it really well so the grass seeds that were there had dropped, but they hadn't started sprouting yet. They got rid of the gorse that was between sort of knee and hip height with the helicopter. And as you can see from this view here, we are the section of land on the left there that is mostly just grass and fleabane. On the right you can see there's a whole lot of gorse growing and a whole lot of pine trees. Some of them are wildling pines, but they have had that replanted, fortunately or unfortunately, in pines again. So you can definitely see the difference where the helicopter went and didn't go. We have had to follow that up with some grubbing and some weeding and a little bit of hand spraying. Again, not my favourite thing, but to try and get on top of this gorse, we decided to tackle it early on and tackle it hard. So hopefully we're not battling it for the next 50 odd years. We still don't have boundary fences, but our house sale is finally going through. So one of the very first things on our list is to get a boundary fence in. For now we've just got an electric fence running along, and that seems to mostly be keeping the cows in. But I'm quite desperate to get ourselves some sheep. And for that we definitely need some decent fences, because they'll just walk through a single wire of electric, which the cows generally don't do. As you can see, this big building down here is the barn, and we are starting to build animal sheds around here. This was the pig pen. We just processed the pigs last week. They got absolutely massive, and the best thing about having the pigs on a deep bedding system, apart from the fact they don't stink, is they are making phenomenal amounts of compost for me. So this big pile of bags here is from the last lot of pigs, and this big pile in the middle here is the current pigs. I need to build it up a bit more and flip it all over. When we process the pigs, all the offal and stuff that we weren't using all went into that pile as well, so eventually all that nutrition will end up in my garden. Around here you can see a selection of different chicken pens. My 14, nearly 15-year-old daughter Chloe is working on a couple of breeds of chickens. This one here, she's working on being like the ultimate homesteading chicken. It will be a really good forager and a really good layer. She's on to about her third or fourth generation working on that, and her goal is to be the first official breed recognised that has been developed in New Zealand. So she's off at a chicken show this weekend, and that's obviously her focus in life at the moment. Off the back of all of our sheds we have put water systems and put them into IBC totes. We collect, all our water comes from the sky here. We don't have any springs or rivers or anything that we can tap into. So everything relies on rain catchment. So we have put gutters on the back of the sheds and put them in so that we're collecting water, which of course it's the middle of winter here, so they are all full to the brim. Up the driveway, a wee bit closer to where the house is going to be, we're doing a little bit of, I guess what you would call a folly. It's an attempt at a very small straw bale building. It's basically an outshed. The kids are going to use it for keeping their craft stuff in. But it's basically a trial run of how the straw bale works and making the clay mud and plaster and all that sort of jazz. So we're slowly working our way through getting that up and functioning. Our plan on Monday is to make the plaster. So hopefully we can get some of the inside plastered in the next few weeks. And then this of course is my food forest, and you can see the grass is growing finally here. This has taken almost 3 years for the grass to finally get itself established. And whilst I don't want lots of grass on my berms, it is a good sign that the soil is recovering. This food forest area is about 1/4 of an acre, or just over 1,000 square meters, give or take. And when I dug all of these berms, of all of the digging I did, I found half of an earthworm, which, yes, that means I cut the earthworm in half with my shovel, but there were no worms. It was absolutely insane. But we have brought in some manure from our last house. We've done a lot of mulching, a lot of green crops, and just time, I think, has made a big difference too. And now, so if you dig in the berms, you can find lots of like the tiger worms, the composting worms, that are showing that the soil is actually improving. My fruit trees that I planted 2.5 years ago have only just started growing. I think that's testament to how rubbish the soil was, just how much shock they went into when we moved them here. I lost quite a few. They just didn't die. They just didn't grow. And the ones that did grow just haven't thrived until this last season. I'm finally seeing some decent growth. So I have high hopes for this coming season that we might actually get a decent amount of growth on them. I also have this nursery area where I'm growing a lot of plants from seed. Obviously, if you're planting this amount of area, I cannot afford to pay $50 to $70 per tree. So I'm doing a lot of from seed propagation and a lot of grafting it myself, buying rootstock. There are usually sort of $5 to $7 for a rootstock, and then sort of $3-ish for a scion wood, or you can see if you have friends with varieties that you want to steal and put them on top, and that gives you a fruit tree for around $10. It does take a lot longer. You do have to kind of keep them sheltered while that graft takes. But again, when you're planting hundreds of trees, it's saving like thousands of dollars. So for us, that's my option. I do it that way, or I don't have trees. We have put a couple of sheds up here by the garden. One of them we call the garden shed, and it's actually got bikes and fishing rods and all sorts of random stuff in it, as well as the bigger machines that I need. The smaller shed we call the potting shed, and it's mostly full of pots and the odd sort of fertilizer and that sort of thing. And between it is the gate into my veggie garden. And within the veggie garden, currently all that is actually growing is the asparagus and carrots, a bed of carrots. I have to keep most of the gardens covered with this bird netting, partly to keep the blackbirds out because they are the bane of my existence, and partly to help deter the possums that come in and eat the tops off my veggies. These are my ducks. They are some young, what are they called? I can't remember what they're called. Young, not mallards. Muscovies. They're young Muscovies. And my plan is to move them into the food forest when we eventually put a fence around the food forest. At the moment they're keeping the grass down in the veggie garden, but they're also pooping on everything, making it a bit slippery and gross. They're really enjoying this drainage trench, which the digger driver put in to help drain the excess water away. But I've actually blocked the end of it so that it'll fill up, and it's acting more like a swale. So it fills up with water and then it slowly drains into the ground, helping keep everything up here just that wee bit wetter. Out in the food forest area, I really like the idea of having places that you can just kind of sit and ponder and enjoy the garden. And so I've dug myself a little pond, and I've got a few trees planted around it that one day will be nice and big and provide a wee bit of shade and shelter. But this bench, I love just sitting on it, and on a nice day I can see out to the ocean, and just to sit and enjoy the space and to dream about what things are coming next. And then lucky last is my tunnel house. I love this space. I work in here so many times when it's windy or it's rainy or it's just generally yuck. It's about 100 square meters, give or take 1,000 square feet. And predominantly, honestly, we grow most of our food in here. To the point where I'm wondering about covering our whole actual veggie garden in a massive tunnel house, because everything just grows so much better. In here, obviously, we grow our peppers, we grow tomatoes, and then during the summer I also managed to grow lettuce all season long. Got a random selection of herbs in here. The sweet alyssum has made a huge difference, absolutely massive difference, the amount of aphids I don't have in here. It attracted so many beneficial insects, a lot of those tiny little hoverflies, and my aphid problem almost completely disappeared once it started flowering. So I'm just letting it self-seed in here. if it's in the way when I'm trying to plant something, I just pull some out. It comes out very easily, and I'm not sad about it because one, it smells delicious, and two, the bugs just love it so much. We managed to get a whole lot of these bricks, and whilst they probably aren't the best pavers, they do get a little bit slippery. I've decided that it would be nice to have a brick pathway through here, partly just so it's not mushy, but partly also for the thermal mass to try and hold the heat in here overnight a little bit better. I've completed this one side, and you can see here I've got broccoli and herbs and all sorts of bits and bobs. I've got some cauliflower and cabbage down the far end, all growing nicely, ready for us to eat. We have been eating some of the broccoli already. At the far end I've got some carrots, some lettuce, some fennel and some celery, all growing down there next to the beehives. The beehives, we had this brilliant idea of moving my mum's beehives up here. They're really struggling down at her place, and we're wondering if maybe the neighbours might be spraying something around, because they just have not done well ever since they moved in there. She loses bees almost every winter, and it's not just to the cold. It's not actually all that cold here. We're coastal, and so we decided that we'd move them up here. I'm growing lots of flowers. They'd have somewhere to be, and we thought we could put them in the tunnel house over the winter so they're a bit warmer. And by the time we actually got around to moving them, we had a really cold snap, and the hives were already really small and weak, and unfortunately by the time we moved them up here, the hives had passed away. Our plan in the springtime is to get a couple of nukes and put them in here, and probably move the hives themselves out to the end of the tunnel house so they're not actually in here overheating over the summer. But then it means that we can just step them back through the door for the winter, and they can enjoy the extra shelter that the tunnel house does provide. Now on this other side, I still have not yet completed the path, but I'm getting there slowly, and I have just pulled out the very last of my tomatoes. They were fruiting, still flowering right up into the middle of winter, but they were getting to the point where the fruits weren't ripening quite as well as they could be. Some of them were developing sort of bitter flavours, which to me says they were struggling a bit too much. And the cauliflowers that were planted underneath them have got to the point where they just need some more space. So I've taken the plants out. That was during the week, and hopefully the cauliflowers grow and give us some food. Also in here I've started planting a whole lot of strawberries. Tunnel house grown strawberries are just so good. And I've just ordered 100 Camrosa plants, so that's my job this afternoon. It is in fact Sunday, which is my gardening day. So that is my plan today, is to get those in. We're sacrificing 2 of the Veggie Garden beds and going to make them strawberry beds, but also I want a row of them in here. What else is in here? Oh, I've got my onions sprouted, and I've got a whole lot of poppy seeds that I just found a packet of them, thought I'd grow them. I'm going to put them out in the food forest, let them start self-seeding out there. Oh, and the tomato seeds that I planted last week, they are all up and doing well. When it warms up slightly more up here, I'll move them into the tunnel house so they can enjoy the better light out here. But for now, they're enjoying the warmth beside the fire. This is my herb garden. It's got a lot of medicinal herbs, and this wee archway eventually will lead into our backyard, and we're planning on putting a garage, workshop, music studio up here, and then long term putting in a straw bale house is the plan. If you want to see how far we've really come, check out this video here. I'll give you the original tour of this property and the stark contrast between where we are and where we've been. Thanks for joining me. I'll catch you on the next one.